This video introduces Redcell network management. So let's start installing Redcell. Locate the installer. In this case it's for Windows, but it could be for Linux or even Solaris. And start running the Install Shield wizard. This is a standard installer, familiar to many of you. Click through the wizard accepting the license, the location where the installation will occur. And in this case, we'll install a full installation of a particular edition of Redcell called Redcell Engineering Pro. Redcell comes in many editions, specialized for the variety of network management that it has available. We've speeded this up just so you won't be watching a wizard forever, but installation can take anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes depending on the hardware you're installing to and the amount of Redcell components you are installing as well. You can install to our included MySQL database and configure the size of that database. You can also install to an Oracle database. You can install a distributed installation on several machines. You can install a high availability installation as well. So as I say, a variety of installations are available. This particular one is a rather elementary edition. You can also elect to auto-start the application server. If you do so, after you click Finish on the wizard, down in the bottom right corner of your Windows computer screen, you'll see the tray has a small computer with an arrow. When the arrow turns green, application server is started. Right-click to stop it. After starting application server, you'll want to start the client. Click the Start button in Windows, find the Redcell application, and click Redcell. You'll be prompted to log in. Default user is admin and default password is blank. You'll be prompted also to change that the first time you log in. And when the client opens, the first thing you'll probably want to do is discover. After you open the client, you can see the About box and then start discovering devices. And let's begin discovering the devices on your network. Click the big Begin Discovery button or the magnifying glass icon on the toolbar, and the Discovery Wizard opens. You can enter IP addresses. You can even open files with lists of IP addresses if you use that little pick list to the left of this field. You can also select the authentications that go with the devices you enter. Here we're just using default SNMP. Notice that you can tune the timeouts, the retries, and the port for these authentications. We'll select a default that we've already configured, and we'll add another IP address to discover. Notice that you can reuse that SNMP or other authentication and select different ones as well. Click Apply, and then click Inspect to validate what you've entered so far. Notice that you can see which devices respond to ping, for which devices Redcell is licensed, and if you go over towards the right, you'll see how the authentications you've entered have been validated. Click the Change Authentications icon to revise what you've entered. We'll try that same authentication one more time just to see, and click Test. Notice that it really doesn't work. We know that's the right one. Let's try applying it, but this time we'll change the timeouts retries, and just for fun, we'll change the port. Now let's test it with a little more account for network latency. Sure enough, it succeeds. So we'll close this window, and we'll select the devices we want to discover, in this case just the one we've just tested. Check the Discover column. If you don't check every one, you're asked if you're really sure you want to do this. And then Discovery opens the job screen. This is a record of the messages between Redcell and the device. You'll see the messages in brief at the top of the screen. If you click a single message, the details of it will appear at the bottom. Notice also that for performance reason, the screen is not refreshed that often. You can tune the refresh rate with the little checkbox in the middle. Notice that each message also has a time and date you can read in the middle. Now let's use Redcell's reporting capabilities. These reports are based on the discovered equipment, and to see them, go to the Reports Manager, and in this case, we'll select the Cisco EOL end-of-life report, but you can see there are many others seeded with this application. To see the contents of the report, select it and open it. The most important part of this is that the Cisco dynamic group, that is all Cisco devices, are the equipment that this report covers. We'll close this without making any other changes to it. And to run it, we'll right-click and select Execute. A little mini job screen appears with the progress of this report. And the report itself will appear in the window, in the work panel. You can examine this report as it is and save it to disk in many formats. In this case, we'll save it as an Excel spreadsheet. To save it within Redcell, click the Save button at the bottom right. These saved within Redcell reports appear in the historical reports. You can rerun the historical reports by right-clicking the nodes in this little view, and again you'll see the report progress and be able to examine that historical report with the parameters specified when it was run that particular time. You can also see the members of the dynamic group, the discovered Cisco devices. Now let's back up and restore configuration files for the devices you've discovered. To do this, you first have to configure an FTP server, typically an FTP or TFTP server, although there are secure versions of those. For this, we'll use the internal server. We go to the File Servers Manager, click Enable, and note the green light turns on, showing that it's enabled. Now to see what's on the device, we'll select the device, go to netconfig, and look at the current config. If you double-click the device or click Action Open, you'll also see these configs in this equipment editor. There's a list of the configurations that you may have retrieved from the device. We'll close that nav panel for a little more room. And you can see the whole history of configuration here. You can also import and export text file configuration. You can even edit the configurations that are there. Here we're going to enter some harmless text as a comment just to show you the configuration comparison. We'll save that and notice that you've got 3 configurations now. Now let's compare 2 of them. We'll control-click and select, then hit Compare, and you'll see the modified lines highlighted in color. Pretty cool. You can also restore these configurations if something happens to corrupt one. Just click netconfig restore when you've selected the device, and you'll see a restoration screen with the configuration to restore, and at the bottom you'll see there are a few changes that you can make to the protocol, or whether you do the running config or the backup config or whatever. You again see a job screen with the details of the message traffic between Redcell and the device. Event will be, now let's deploy a binary like an operating system or firmware. To do this, first you have to register the binary that you're going to deploy in the OS images. We'll go to Action New, and we'll name an image test. We're not actually going to deploy one here, we're just going to demonstrate the feature. Click the plus and find a file. We'll find a nice graphic. We'll enter a version and select a vendor. You can then select all or any of the models. We actually have a Cisco 3825 that we've discovered, so we'll just go ahead and select that and save it. Notice that the image appears in the manager, and the details of the file name and vendor and supported models appear below as you select each one. That's typical for Redcell managers. Now let's sudo deploy to this 3825. We'll again go to netconfig, and then this time we'll select deploy. The deployment screen appears with the eligible images. We'll select the one that we just made. Notice that you can configure the file system, the file server protocol, the mediation timeout, and a few other items here. We'll cancel this rather than mess with our device. That concludes the introductory demonstration of Redcell's basic features. Many more are available, including alarm and performance management, scanning for compliance, deploying services like VPN, and others. Go to DoradoSoftware.com for more information.